We mentioned this is the show, the Megurashim. And here I want to take the opportunity to point out a very important phenomenon. And we're going to go to the Jewish cemetery. I have a sefer. It's called Matzeves Marrakesh. It's bigger than the telephone book of Gedolei Yisrael that just lived in Marrakesh. It's my biggest book. The biggest sefer I have is Matzeves Marrakesh. It was such a big sefer that Rabbi Yosef Hillel had to write a second book to navigate the first book. It's such a big book compiling a list of all the sages who lived here in Marrakesh that it's massive. Rabbi Yosef Hillel had to write a guidebook to navigate that first book. I have a sefer called Malki Rabbanan. Thousands of Chachamim who lived in Morocco. If you show this not just to the average Jew, you show it to a Talmud Chacham, maybe they heard of one or two of the names of the thousands. Such an interesting phenomenon. You tell somebody about a Gadol who lived in Europe, of course everybody knows them. Even if they didn't learn in yeshiva, you heard the names. Anywhere else in the world, you're more familiar with. Why is it that the Gedolim of Morocco are almost completely unknown to the majority of the Jewish people? So Rav Yosef Hillel, in the introduction to Kedoshei Marrakesh, he says something very important. There is one thing that never really made its way to Morocco, that because of it, so many of these Gedolim are unknown. And that is something called the printing press. The printing press never made it to North Africa. So most of the Ksavim, most of the manuscripts of these Gedolim, unfortunately remained in manuscript form. And over the years they were lost, they were buried, they were scattered, and unfortunately, Nishkachu Kameis Milev, the names of these sages were forgotten. There's one notable exception. Reb Chaim ibn Attar. Had it not been for a stroke of Hashgacha Pratis, probably you never would have heard of Reb Chaim ibn Attar. But at the end of Reb Chaim ibn Attar's life, in the year 1742, 1 year before his passing, Reb Chaim ibn Attar decided he's going to make Aliyah, he's going to move to Eretz Yisrael. That's, by the way, where the Chida learned from Reb Chaim ibn Attar for 1 year in Eretz Yisrael. Reb Chaim ibn Attar goes to Eretz Yisrael through Italy. He stops off in Venice. In Venice, he encounters the printing press. So he sends his manuscripts. He prints Or Chaim HaKadosh ala Torah. Had Or Chaim HaKadosh not made his way through Italy, you never would have heard of him. That's an amazing hashgacha. There's another exception. There's a famous commentary on the Zohar called Mikdash Melech of Reb Shalom Buzaglo. Reb Shalom Buzaglo. I had the zechus to be at his kever. He's buried in a university in England. How he ended up in England is a different story. He was the student of the Chachmei Marrakesh. Chachmei Marrakesh put together Mikdash Melech on the Zohar. They called it Likutei Shoshanim. He named it Mikdash Melech. He also was able to publish it, so people know the name Reb Shalom Buzaglo. But from here we see the importance of publishing Sfarim in Jewish history. Publishing a Sefer is the single greatest thing you could do to preserve the Torah and the traditions and the customs and the knowledge of the Chachmei Yisrael for Klal Yisrael. A Sefer lasts forever. Without Sfarim, then the names of these Chachamim unfortunately were lost for all eternity. So we're going to go to the cemetery in Marrakesh. Literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Chachmei Yisrael are buried there, and we're going to try to learn a little bit about them. And Be'ez Hashem, all of our tefillos and the zechus of all these Chachamim and Tzadikim should be oimed lanu ulazarenu shaloi tamush haTorah mipinu pizarenu ad olam.